Hey folks, this is Venetus Maps, here to show you a quick video on how to use the Dirt Road brush that came as a part of the first round of city assets released on July of 2019. Yeah, so this is going to cover a few things, but it's certainly not going to cover all of the basic stuff of Photoshop. So if you are not already fairly well accustomed with Photoshop, this might not be super helpful, but if you've never used a brush like this before, hopefully it will be. So if you haven't dropped a custom brush into Photoshop before, most of the time, most brushes nowadays will come as an ABR file, and typically, in most versions of Photoshop, you can simply drop in. There we go. So I didn't drop it into the window, I dropped it into the icon down in my dock out of the view of the video. And you can see it just pops up right here in my brushes. If for some reason that does not work as simply for you, you can just go up into the menu here, and I believe if you go to import brushes, you can simply manually go to the downloads. Okay. You can manually go to the downloads and select it from there, but hopefully just dropping it into the icon below should do that for you. In there you will find it, just a single brush. You can drop it in and organize it wherever you want to. And what I use this for, and what I recommend you use it for, is to make the sort of dirt road, muddied sort of urban feel that I am using in at least one of these maps here. This is the Simplar map from the same city assets pack. You can see this sort of dirt road effect that I've put in all of the major roads going in and out of the city, as well as along the main thoroughfares of the city itself. So rather than trying to take on the impossible task of making bunches and bunches of different PNG assets for you that would somehow fit to whatever customizable building arrangement you might want, I decided to instead just give you the brush I use myself so that you can kind of do it yourself. So when you select the brush, there isn't going to be any preset size to it. It'll just be the same size as it was when it arrived to you. I am using a mouse right now, which I imagine is probably what most of you would be doing as well, though you'll find that you can get a little bit more out of this brush if you're using a tablet or a pen of some kind that will detect pressure sensitivity. That way you can get a little bit more opacity flow out of it, as well as maybe change up some stuff with the diameter of the brush itself. So you're going to want to make that whatever size you want here. Again, depending on the size of the road you're going for, if you're doing like a major highway leading into the city, that might be anywhere from 100 to 200. If you're doing something more in the middle of the city, depending on how wide and dense the streets are, you might do somewhere between, I don't know, 30 to 50. And you will also need to pick out the color of your road that is not picked for you. I'll just go ahead and eyedropper the same color I was using over here in Simplar. And you'll need to make your own layer for this road. You don't want to do it onto the ground layer or with a shared layer of another element of the map. So I'll go ahead and make a layer for that, and I'll show you why we have to do that in a second. It's generally good practice to do that regardless, but you'll see here as I'm clicking and dragging that it is creating the resemblance of a foot tread dirt path here for me. And I'm going to do a couple of things here first. And again, this is better when you're doing it with a pen. You can get some more variancy to it that'll make it look a little bit more natural. But even with just a mouse, it'll get the job done. And then what you might want to do is do one long continuous drag of the mouse for the main road here. And then what I would do is click around that to get some offshoots that will kind of help break up that outline to make it look a little bit less like a path you drew and more like an organic ground element. Again, that's with 100. This would be with 50, would probably be easier to fit between buildings were they on this image. Yeah. And again, if you just press a little bit and kind of drag it around, apologies for all of the clicking noises, you can get some spottier effects too if you're doing like a portion of the city or a trail leading out that maybe isn't quite as heavily trafficked. It may not have such a opaque marking to its footpath. You might do something like this instead. So that's the basic idea, and the goal here is for it to be fairly straightforward and easy to use, so hopefully that seems like the case. But the sort of rogue element here to kind of help this fit in better is you're going to double click on the layer that has the road in it. And in here, a layer style window will pop up. In here, you'll see a few things, and including stuff like drop shadow and color overlay, a few things that I'll show you how to use in the other videos. But what we want for the road is the inner glow effect. And by default, it appears it's going to set me to white and screen. That's not really what I want. I'm going to instead change that color by clicking on the square to black. And instead of screen, I will go to multiply. And here is where you're going to mess with it a bit more, depending on what you want. I will typically, the size of the elements, I would probably keep relatively small. And then noise, since you're going for a dirt road, I like to add, somewhere between 2 to 5%, taster's choice there. But and what this does, I'm going to toggle the preview here for you, is it sort of helps with the topographical elements of the road, helping it feel more set into the ground rather than something that was so clearly painted on top of it. You can see how that, what is the Photoshop is calling a glow effect, is effectively working as a shadow, which sort of casts these darker edges in towards the center of the road, where if you can imagine where people would be walking and kind of pounding the earth down, it would be sloping upwards towards the edges. That is sort of the effect that we're going for here, and kind of helps it feel more anchored into the ground and more naturally a part of it. Okay, so that is the road brush, where you would use the inner glow, and you could use varying sizes of that. Again, Pen will help you to build your own road effects within the city itself. All right, have fun.